right. Let me send a note out. Make sure we're online. All right, we are online. All right, so just make sure the sound is coming through. Okay. Make sure we're online. Okay, it's working. Okay. So now let's have a little kirtan. Okay. Hold on, let me get my guitar. For those of you who don't have the latest version of Zoom, you're not seeing the immersive view. But for those of you who do have the latest version of Zoom, you are seeing the immersive view. I think I got to change my classroom right now. There we go, that's better. Okay, something bigger now. This is a better classroom. We got Ishwarpur, you're sitting next to your teacher. Hey, Mayapur, we should send you to the back of the class. Wait a second. I'm going to send Mayapur to the back since he's been a bad boy. Okay, he's in the back of the class now. It's pretty nice. See who else has been a bad boy. Okay. So, just requesting everybody to download by tomorrow the latest version of Zoom, so we can actually put everybody in their places. Anyone who's not being attentive, we just put them outside, so it's better. This is ideal for Gurukul online teaching, because you can see all your students. This is what Champaka is going to do from now on. It's much more easier on the eyes, actually. Okay, anyway, we'll stop the humor, and now we will chant. Okay. Okay, gotta go higher. Caitanya Prabhu Jaya Gauramo Tuma Vena Ke Dayalo Jagat Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tavavatara Mosamopati Tapravo Mahaprabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Ripabala Kanakara Amibaro Tukhi Tayako Sitapati Advaita Goswami Tava Kripa Bole Pai Caitanya Akasaru Sanatana Rupa Raguna Bhatta-juga Shijiva Prabodhogana Royakushi Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamadaras Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dwaya Koramo Tumabena Ke Dayana Ragat Samsara Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, Haribo, 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 Nichai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paragadacharya Vasadara Sri Shimai His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanara Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Machuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Udale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Jayaja Tarane. So, Om Ganad Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, so now we'll continue with the Caitanya Caritamrta. We got to go back to the regular mode for that. But for those of you who are joining us, please by tomorrow upload the latest version of Zoom on your computer and you'll be able to perceive the different backdrops we're using right now. And right now we're in a classroom backdrop and all the seats are not yet filled. Okay, so now we'll go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So, for those of you who don't know, we are on the second chapter of the Madhya lila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. And the second chapter is rather a short chapter, and it deals with the summary of the final pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. Now, right now, what we're reading are the emotions or expressions of the emotions of Srimati Radharani feeling separation from Krishna, and sometimes that mood of separation is manifest in terms of her man or anger, which we're going to hear about right now. And these expressions of love of Krishna in the mood of separation, and sometimes in the mood of anger, and sometimes in the mood of bitterness, they're being expressed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spent the final portion of his pastimes in Jagannath Puri manifesting the mood of Srimati Radharani in separation, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna who is trying to understand the mood of Radharani, especially the mood in separation. So text 30. Saki hey shuna mora hatavidi bhala moravapu chitamana sakala andriyagana Krishna Venu Sakala Vipala. Hold on a second. Let's go on. My dear friends, please hear me. I have lost all providential strength. Without Krishna, my body, conscience, and mind, as well as my senses, are useless. Krishna Ramaduravani Amritera Tarangindi Tara Praveshanahi Ye Shravane Kanakari Chidrasama Janiha Se Shravana Tara Janma Haila Akaran He. Topics about Krishna are like waves of nectar. If such nectar does not enter one's ear, the ear is no better than the whole of a damaged conch shell. Such an ear is created for no purpose. So here, we're going to read a verse from the Bhagavatam that actually relates to this. And it's a verse that I actually quoted before. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes the following verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 3rd Chapter, texts 17 to 24. Ayu harati vaipum samudhyam nastam jayanzo tadyarte yakshano nita utamashloka vartya tadvakim na jivanti vastrakim na swashantyuta nakadanti namheyanti kingrame pashavo pare Swavidvaraho Shrakarai Samstuta Purusha Pushu Niyat Karna Pato Peto Jatu Nama Gada Graja Bile Bato Rukrama Vikramam Ye Nashin Vataskarna Pute Narasya Jivasati Darduki Aduri Keva Sutta Nachope Gayat Yurugaya Gataha Mara parampata karita chishtam abhyutamangam nanamend vikundam shavo karano kurute saparyam harerlas at kanjana kankandha nava parhayate te nayane naranam lingani vishnor nanarikshato ye Padonranam tau druma janma bhajau Shitrani nanu vrajato hareryau Jivan javo bhagavatangri renum Najatum archo vilabeta yastu Shri Vishnu padyamanu jastu lasya Shwasanjavo yastu naveda gantam Tadashmasaram radiyam batedam Yad grihamanay harinamadeyaay navikriyetata yato vikaro netre jalam gatra ruheshu harsha. Both by rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beasts not eat and discharge semen? Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord should be considered to possess ears like the holes of snakes and a tongue like that of a frog. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, Hari. The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, that is his forms, names, qualities, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock, and the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like tree trunks. The person who has not at any time received upon his head the dust from the feet of a pure devotee of the Lord is certainly a dead body, and the person who has never experienced the fragrance of the tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change and feel ecstasy, at which time tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end. Very important part of the Bhagavatam. In other words, the whole purpose of anything is to hear, chant, remember, and perform the 9 processes of devotional service in relationship with the Lord. And anything that is not connected to those 9 processes of devotional service to the Lord is useless, hopeless, and even takes us away from our real self-interest. It's not only neutral, hopeless, but actually draws us away from our real self-interest, our real constitutional position. Such an important series of verses. Krishnara Adamrita Krishna Guna Charita. Sudat Saraswara Venindana Taraswara Ye Jane Janmiyana Mailakine Sarasana Beka Jiva Sama. The nectar from the lips of Lord Krishna and his transcendental qualities and characteristics surpass the taste of the essence of all nectar, and there is no fault in tasting such nectar. If one does not taste it, he should die immediately after birth, and his tongue is to be considered no better than the tongue of a frog. And then we described before that the tongue of the frog is mainly meant, of course, for eating, but in this particular context, it's meant for calling his girlfriends. And instead of calling his girlfriends, he calls his snake friends to eat him. So whenever you hear the frog going, ribbit, 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 you know that's what he's doing. Now, many times in this world, we hear the beautiful songs of the birds. I'm not going to say beautiful songs of the frog because of that. Usually that beautiful. But anyway, the beautiful songs of the birds. So what are the birds doing? They're asking questions or answering or delineating their territories. And what are those questions, answers, and delineation based on? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's like sometimes you see these little tiny birds, baby birds, and they're waiting for the worms from their mother, and they're going tweet, tweet, like that. They're simply thinking they're hungry. That's all. Just a physical, bodily condition. And we're thinking, oh, it's so sweet. Of course, if one is Krishna conscious, one hears the chirping of the birds and understands that's Krishna's music. Yes, that is a fact. But in essence, we understand that basically, let me just erase this thing here. Oops, can't do that. There we go. Basically, we understand that it is living entities performing those 4 bodily functions. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Where is food? Where is mate? Singing a song to attract my beloved frog. And even the decorations on the bodies. That's true. The decorations on the bodies of different living entities. Of course, with birds, generally the male bird is more decorated than the female bird, which is really interesting. Like the peacock, he is really beautiful. He has all those different feathers, the peacock feathers, whereas the peahen, she's kind of plain. But those decorations are meant in the material world to attract the opposite sex. So sometimes you see ladies, they're putting the earrings on and the makeup and the hairdresser. It's the same as the peacock, but it's a female at this particular point. So we have human beings who act like peacocks. And the males, they sometimes strut like peacocks. So Migamara Nilopala Milaneye Parimala Ye Hare Taragovamana Hena Krishnanga Gada Ganda. Sorry, it's a Ganda. It's really important. Yaranahi se sambandha senasa vastrara samana. One's nostrils are no better than the bellows of a blacksmith if one has not smelled the fragrance of Krishna's body, which is like the aroma of musk combined with that of a bluish lotus flower. Indeed, such combinations are actually defeated by the aroma of Krishna's body. So, the bellows of a blacksmith, they're just meant for producing air, but there's not very significant. They're just air. There's no consciousness. Krishna Kara Padatala Koti Chandra Shushitala Tarasparsha Yenasparsha Mani Tarasparsha Nahiyara Seyok Charakara Sevapuloha Samajani. The palms of Krishna's hands and the soles of his feet are so cool and pleasant that they can be compared only to the light of millions of moons. One who has touched such hands and feet has indeed tasted the effects of touchstone. If one has not touched them, his life is spoiled and his body is like iron. So these are the words, of course, of Srimati Radharani, spoken through the mouth of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So you're getting a little bit of insight into Srimati Radharani's, he just say, mood, consciousness, attitude. Let's use the word attitude. Little insight. Kariyeta vilapana Prabhu Shachinandana Ughadiya Hridayera Shoka Dainya Nireda Vishade Hridayera Avasade Punarapi Pade Ekashloka. Lamenting in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened the doors of grief within his heart. Morose, humble, and disappointed, he recited a verse again and again with a despondent heart. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the word dainya, humility, is explained as follows. 1. Unhappiness, fearfulness, and the sense of having offended combined, one feels condemned. This sense of condemnation is described as dinatha, humility. When one is subjected to such humility, he feels physically inactive, he apologizes, and his consciousness is disturbed. His mind is also restless, and many other symptoms are visible. The word nirveda is also explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One may feel unhappiness and separation, as well as jealousy and lamentation, due to not discharging one's duties. That despondency, the results, is called nirveda. When one is captured by this despondency, thoughts, tears, loss of bodily luster, humility, and heavy breathing result. Vishada is also explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When one fails to achieve his desired goal of life and repents for all of his offenses, there's a state of regret called vishada. The symptoms of avasada are also explained. One hankers to revive his original condition and inquires how to do so. There are also deep thought, heavily breathing, crying and lamentation, as well as a changing of the bodily color and drying up of the tongue. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 33 such destructive symptoms are mentioned. They are expressed in words, in the eyebrows, and in the eyes. These symptoms are called vyabhichari bhava, destructive ecstasy. If they continue, they are sometimes called sanchari, or continued ecstasy. Interesting. These are different definitions than I've heard before. Destructive and continued ecstasy. In any case, these 33 vyabhichari bhavas are intermittent, and they take over someone, and someone has no control over them. Therefore, they're called destructive ecstasy, because they just destroy all other feelings. They become so potent, so heavy, that they overwhelm anything else you're thinking about. That's vyabhichari bhava. Now, there's other bhavas called the anubhavas. These are things like dancing and ecstasy that you have some control over. You can decide, am I going to dance in ecstasy, or am I going to just sit like a lump on the log during arti? That's an anubhava. But the vyabhichari bhavas, you have no control over it, and you don't even know when they're coming, and they just take over your consciousness, and sometimes they're just like death. not actual death, but you appear to be dead. Like when Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu entered the temple of Lord Jagannath for the first time, and he fainted, and many people thought, this sannyasi has died. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took a little swab of cotton and put it in front of his nose. Let's try to find a swab right here. And he could detect the breathing. He said he's not dead. And they took Lord Chaitanya to his house, and the devotees had a kirtan, and Lord Chaitanya revived his consciousness to his external consciousness. Yada yato daivam madun ripuraso lochanapatam tadasmakam cheto madana hata kenaritam abhut punaryasmin neshakshanam apidrashoreti padavim vidashamas tasmin akila gatika ratna kachitaha. If by chance the transcendental form of Krishna comes before my path of vision, my heart, injured from being beaten, will be stolen away by Cupid, happiness personified. Because I could not see the beautiful form of Krishna to my heart's content, when I again see his form, I shall decorate the phases of time with many jewels. Wow. Wow. This verse is spoken by Srimati Radharani in the Jagannath Vallabha Nataka 3:11 of Ramananda Roy. Wow. There's not much I can say with these things. These things are very high. These statements are very high, elevated statements. So just try to enter into the mood of these statements that Srimati Radharani is manifesting or expressing, and you can appreciate how deep is the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna, and how deep Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu is experiencing that particular love, because that was one of the objectives of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, to understand the love and actually to experience it, and to experience the happiness that Srimati Radharani has in relationship to him, Krishna. Ye kale vaswapane dekinuvam shivadane se kali aila dvivairi anandara madana harinila moramana dekite na painu netrapuri. Whenever I had the chance to see Lord Krishna's face and his flute, even in a dream, two enemies would appear before me. They were pleasure and Cupid, and since they took away my mind, I was not able to see the face of Krishna to the full satisfaction of my eyes. So even a devotee's ecstasy is interfering with his vision, or her vision. In this case, her vision. Punayari konakshana Kariya Krishna Darashana Tabe Se Gatikshana Pala Diyamalya Chandana Nanaratna Abharana Alankrita Karimu Sakala. If by chance such a moment comes when I can once again see Krishna, then I shall worship those seconds, moments, and hours with flower garlands and pulp of sandalwood, and decorate them with all kinds of jewels and ornaments. So there's this intense hankering, which is called loyam. Loyam means greed. Now in the Upadeshamrita, it mentions that greed for material things is a cause of deviation from Krishna consciousness. But that same greed, loyam, or tears, is the price of pure devotional service. I must have, instead of thinking, I must have a new car, I must have a new wife, I must have a new house, I must. We should think, I must have Krishna, I must please Krishna, I must please my spiritual master. Shane baya lamana age de ke dvijana Tanri pucce amina Caitanya swapna praya ki dekinu kivahami pralapinu tumara kichu shuniyacha dainya. In an instant, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained external consciousness and saw two persons before him. Questioning them, he asked, "Am I conscious? What dreams have I been seeing? What craziness have I spoken? Have you heard some expressions of humility?" This is called Divyanmata, transcendental craziness. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus spoke in ecstasy, he saw two persons before him. One was his secretary, Swarup Damodar, and the other was Rai Ramananda. And of course, Swarup Damodar Goswami is the appearance of Lalita Devi, and Rai Ramananda is the appearance of Vishaka. And they were or are the two closest associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and two closest associates of Srimati Radharani. Coming to his external consciousness, he saw them both present, and although he was still talking in the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, he immediately began to question whether he was the same Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shunamora pranayara bandhava nahi Krishna premadana daridra mora jivana dehendriya vrita mora sabha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "My dear friends, you are all my life and soul. Therefore I tell you that I possess no wealth of love for Krishna. Consequently, my life is poverty-stricken. My limbs and senses are useless." And other times Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say that if I'd love Krishna, how could I maintain my life? Whew. And that's real love. Just like you see, even in this material world, when two people who are very much connected experience that one of them passes away, one of them dies, the other will very often die within a very short period of time. Because that's love, attachment. And so that same attachment that we have for materialistic persons or materialistic places or materialistic circumstances, if we transfer that same attachment to spiritual personalities, this is what the Shastras tell us, then we will become spiritually perfect. Don't give up attachment, transfer the attachment, the same exact mood of attachment you have for spiritual personalities. Hunakahe haya haya shuna sarupa ramaraya emora hridaya nischaya shuni karaha vicharan haya naya kaha sara itabali shloka ucharya. Oops. Again he addressed Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda, speaking despondently. "Alas, my friends, you can now know the certainty within my heart, and after knowing my heart, you should judge whether I am correct or not. You can speak of this properly." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then began to chant another verse. Wow. Kahi avarahi ami pemam nahi hoy manushe loi jai hoy kasavirahe hontum mikojai. Love of Godhead, devoid of cheating propensities, is not possible within this material world. If there's such a love, there cannot be separation, for if there is separation, how can one live? Exactly what I was talking about before. If there's really intense love and you're separated from your beloved, you cannot maintain your life. You won't want to eat, you won't want to breathe, you won't want to do anything. But this is a very exalted platform. It's not for an ordinary personality to feel like this. This is a verse in a common language called Prakrita, and the exact Sanskrit transformation is Kaitavarahitam prema nahi bhavati manushe loke yadi bhavati kasya viraho virahe satyapi ko jivati. Wow. Such exalted truths being revealed in these verses. Akaitava Krishna prema yena sambunada hema se primani loke nahaya yadihaya tara yoga nahaya tabe viyoga viyoga haile keha najiha. Pure love for Krishna, just like gold from the Jambu River, does not exist in human society. If it existed, there could not be separation. If separation were there, one could not live. And of course, these are expressions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's humility. In other words, I don't have pure love for Krishna, because if I had pure love for Krishna, then I wouldn't be able to maintain my life. Etakahi shachi sutta shlokapade hadbhuta shune dunhe gamanahanya apana hridya kajja kakite vasiye laja tabu kahi lajabija khana. Thus speaking, the son of Srimati Sachimata recited another wonderful verse, and Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar heard this verse with rapt attention. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I feel shameful to disclose the activities of my heart. Nonetheless, I shall be done with all formalities and speak from the heart. Wow. Na prema gandosti darapi meharao Krandame so bhagya param prakashitum Vamshi vilasana lokanam vina Vibarmi yat prana patangata gakanvrita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, my dear friends, I have not the slightest tinge of love of Godhead within my heart. When you see me crying in separation, I am just falsely exhibiting a demonstration of my great fortune. Indeed, not seeing the beautiful face of Krishna playing his flute, I continue to live my life like an insect without purpose. This is such amazing humility. And then remember, this is God speaking in the mood of his best devotee. Dure Shuddha prema ganda kapata primera banda se amora nahi Krishna paya tabe ye kari krandana sabhagya prakyapana kari iha janiha nischya. Actually, my love for Krishna is far, far away. Whatever I do is actually an exhibition of pseudo-love of Godhead. When you see me cry, I'm simply falsely demonstrating my great fortune. Please try to understand this beyond a doubt. Abject humility, which is absolutely required if one wants to enter into the kingdom of God. In the Bible it's mentioned, if you become like a child, you can go to God. In other words, a child is very humble. And the opposite of humility is pride. So this is extremely important. Pride in what? One is proud of his strength, proud of his intelligence, proud of his wealth, proud of his good birth. I mean, there's so many things we can be proud of. Proud of our car. So many nonsense things. But in order to achieve Krishna's favor, we have to be completely devoid of any sense of false pride. We can be proud in the spiritual master, we can be proud of Krishna, we can be proud of so many things that are not related to our false ego or false identification, or extensions of the false identification. Yate vamshi dvani sukha nadeki se chandamuka yadyapi nahi kahalambana nija dehe kari priti kevala kamera riti prana kitera kariya dharana. Even though I do not see the moon-like face of Krishna as he plays on his flute, and although there's no possibility of my meeting him, still I take care of my own body. That is the way of lust. In this way I maintain my fly-like life. Phew! Such amazing verses. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the lovable Supreme Lord is the supreme shelter. The Lord is the supreme subject, and the devotees are the object. The coming together of a subject and object is called alambana. The object hears, and the subject plays the flute. That the object cannot see the moon-like face of Krishna and has no eagerness to see him is the sign of being without alambana. Externally imagining such a thing simply satisfies one's lusty desires, and thus one lives without a purpose. Krishna prema sunirmala yena shura ganga jala se prema mritera sindhu nirmala se anurage nalukaya anyadage shuklavastre yache masibindhu. Love for Krishna is very pure, just like the waters of the Ganges. That love is an ocean of nectar. That pure attachment to Krishna does not conceal any spot which would appear just like a spot of ink on a white cloth. And Prabhupada explains, unalloyed love of Krishna is just like a big sheet of white cloth. Absence of attachment is compared to a black spot on that white cloth. Just as the black spot is prominent, so the absence of love of Godhead is prominent on the platform of pure love of Godhead. Of course, that's like Anyavilashata Shunyam Jnana Karmana Vritam Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. That's like the nutshell verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that defines what pure devotional service is. Anya Vilashita Shunya. That means, Shunya means void or zero. It's devoid or void, that means zero, of anything else, and those other things are described as jnana karnavritam, as desire for liberation, or desire to get knowledge, or desire for gross sense gratification. Wow, anything else other than service to Krishna. That's the negative definition. And the positive, in other words, subtle or gross sense gratification, or even liberation, is devoid of the desire for liberation. And on the positive side, pure devotional service is described as anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktirutamam, as serving Krishna the way he wants to be served. Not the way you want to serve Krishna, but the way he wants to be served. Being active at it, not simply dreaming, procrastinating, mode of ignorance stuff, and doing it with great joy and love in your heart. That's the definition of pure devotional service, which is actually being given here in the Caitanya Caritamrta with a little bit different words, but it's the same thing. Let's just read the next verse, because that's also interesting in this regard. Shuddha prema sukha sindhu pai taraika bindu se bindu jagat tuvaya kahibara yogyanaya tatapi bhole kaya rahire na keba patihaya. Unalloyed love of Krishna is like an ocean of happiness. If someone gets one drop of it, the whole world can drown in that drop. It is not befitting to express such love of Godhead, yet a madman must speak. But even though he speaks, no one believes him. So what does it mean to get one drop of it? You get the mercy of a pure devotee. Because how do you get love for Krishna? How do you get bhakti? Guess what? You don't get it from Krishna. Bhakti is independent. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur describes this. But Krishna say Tomar, Krishna dite para. The pure devotee has bhakti, and therefore we run behind the pure devotee crying, Krishna, Krishna, Bole, give me mercy. And the reason it's described that we run behind him is, as Prabhupada spoke very nicely when a devotee said, I want your lotus feet. Prabhupada said, my lotus feet are always moving. So what does that mean? If we want Krishna's mercy, we have to give others Krishna. You have to give out the mercy to have the mercy. In Kali Yuga, if you don't give out the mercy, you don't get the mercy. Okay. Let us take some questions now. Stop screen sharing. Oh, we are back in our classroom. It's very nice. Here we are. Some of you can see the classroom, some of you can't. Some of you just see me. But that is Krishna's mercy. So, who has some questions? Anybody have any questions? Questions, comments, arguments, problems? Maybe I need to go into a different view to see everybody. Okay, who has questions now? You can't unmute? Oh, I have to give you permission to unmute. I was enjoying so much everybody's silence. Something I don't often get a chance to enjoy. All right, so unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Gurudev. This is Adidev Das, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Dev, Hare Krishna, you have a question?
Yeah, Gurudev. So a few weeks back, we read that Rupa Goswami's words where it says that the pure devotional service is in the heart of every living entity
Yeah.
or a devotee. At the same time, we hear that, Bhakti Devi is independent. We have to run behind
Yeah.
pure devotee to get it. How to reconcile these two things?
How? Because the pure devotee is the one who wakens up the pure devotional service that's in our heart. That's what it means. The pure devotional service is the constitutional position or constitutional consciousness of a living entity, but it cannot be woken up except by the bhakti shakti of the pure devotee. The pure devotee has the bhakti shakti and can give us that bhakti shakti that wakes up the pure devotional service that's already within our hearts. Okay?
So we have bhakti, but pure devotee will give us.
Yes,
bhakti.
we have pure devotional service. That's our constitutional nature. Jivera Swarupahoy Nitya Krishna Das. But it just has to be woken up, and it can't be woken up by any other means when it's sleeping, except by bhakti, by itself. So we have to be given bhakti to waken up the bhakti that's in our hearts.
Okay, thank you, Gurudev.
That statement is made many, many times that pure devotional service is there in the hearts of the living entities. It's in the Caitanya Caritamrta, and I don't remember the Bengali of it right now, but I'm sure if Pran Govind is on, he can write down the Bengali since he knows Bengali very well. But I don't see him on tonight. Okay, so who else has a question?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Rishikesh.
Rishikesh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gurudev, I have a question about humility at in the beginning stage, in the stage which I am right now. How do I genuinely practice humility? I know I can fake it.
Fake it till you make it, as they say.
You fake it?
Yes. What does that mean? What do I mean by fake it? Fake it means, as we know, we have a mind, intelligence, and an ego. That's a subtle material body. And the mind needs to be controlled by the intelligence. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is sometimes called Buddhi Yoga. What does Buddhi Yoga mean? Buddhi means the mind. So you use, just like the example given in the Bhagavad Gita of a chariot, and the intelligence. What is the intelligence? The intelligence is the driver of the chariot. The soul is the passenger. So the intelligence knows what to do. The mind doesn't feel like doing it sometimes, or most of the times. and you do it anyway. Just like in sadhana bhakti. You may not feel like getting up in the morning, but your intelligence tells you get up. Or even in the material world. Let's say you're working a job, which you do work a job, and it's not that every morning you're thinking, joy, I got to get up and go to work this morning. Haribol. No. Some mornings you're thinking, I got to go to work. But you know through intelligence that your job, your vision, your goal, or whatever, is to work, is to make money so you can accomplish your purposes in life. So you ignore the mind. That's part of functioning in the material world. If you are in the mode of ignorance, you don't ignore the mind, you just follow the mind's directions at every moment. I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel depressed, I feel this. I feel like drinking, not water. I feel like drinking liquor. I feel like smoking. I feel like breaking the principles. I feel like screaming. I feel like using some 4-letter words. You know, the mind just like takes you over. That's ignorance. So when you get out of the mode of ignorance, you start using the intelligence. Now, in the mode of passion, you use the intelligence. Because you conquer the mind in the mode of passion. That's true. Because then you have some goal, material goal in the mode of passion, to make money. Just like my friend, Elon Musk. You may have heard about him.
Yes.
He's my good friend. He hasn't helped me too much yet. So Elon Musk, he practically doesn't sleep at all. He stays at his factories and works practically 24 hours a day. Why? Because he's very much goal-oriented for something material, right? So
Right.
he has conquered the mind. Amazing. Elon Musk has conquered his mind. So that's in the mode of passion. And in the mode of goodness, you conquer the mind to liberate yourself, to get out of this material world. And so we find many people, Mayavadis and personalists. I mean, for example, we have one girl who comes to the temple every day and she meditates on nothing for 5 hours a day.
Right. Yeah, I've seen.
You've ever seen her?
Oh, I see her every day, every Wednesday.
Every time you come to the temple, I mean, we're chanting Hare Krishna, dancing around her, having a big kirtan, Nitai Gaur Haribol, and she withdraws her mind from even Hare Krishna. Anyway, she's making some spiritual advancement because I'm sure some sound vibration is piercing through her thick skull. So anyway, so she withdraws her mind, and so I guess she wants to get liberated. She's so miserable in this material world. Get me out of here. So that's in the mode of goodness. And I'm sure she's a vegetarian and everything. And she appreciates the spirit. I never really talked to her. Some of the devotees have. She's favorable, so we let her meditate in the temple. She may have a mental health condition too, but I'm just using her as an example. I'm not doing an analysis.
Gurudev, she offers flowers to Srila Prabhupada whenever she comes in.
Yeah, so she's making spiritual advancement. It's fantastic. So anyway, so just use an example of someone, let's say, I'm not saying she is, but let's say it could be some mode of goodness to get liberated. So we find people in the material world who control the mind. So controlling the mind for spiritual purposes means knowing the right thing. So the right thing is, even if you don't feel humble, you act humble. Prabhupada said action and knowledge gives realization. In other words, if you act as if you understood it, you will realize it. So that's a very important point, Rishikesh.
Yes, Gurudev. Yes, it makes sense, Gurudev.
Yeah, so action and knowledge gives realization. So even though, and that actually indicates you are humble, because the mind is not what you are. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, as described by Krishna in the Gita. It is like controlling the wind. So the very fact that you're acting properly means you are humble in spite of what the mind is saying. You're rejecting the mind and accepting Krishna. That's a sign of humility. You understand that?
Can we express gratitude? Can we express humility in terms of gratitude?
Yes, gratitude is also an expression of humility. But the point is to understand that control of the mind is not something that just spiritualists do. It's something that anyone who wants to be successful in this world or in liberation has to do. Or else you just be in ignorance. Anyone who just follows the mind is in ignorance. So we understand the right thing to do. You act in a certain way. You accept Krishna's direction in spite of what the mind is saying. That's a manifestation of your humility. Because you're giving up what your mind is saying and accepting what Krishna is saying. That's real humility. If you can do that, you're making a lot of progress. Because you know the right way to act. And then ultimately the mind will come around. When you have a purified mind, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. After you purify your mind, you have a real mind, a spiritual mind, and you purify it by engaging it in Krishna's service. So, Kabe Haba, Hey Rabo, Sri Brindavana, Kabe Haba, Hama, Hey Rabo, Sri Brindavana, then the mind actually manifests Brindavan. But right now the mind is just a manifestation of the modes of nature, of your conditioning. So you have to ignore what the mind says. That is Krishna consciousness. That is Buddhi yoga. Buddhi means intelligence. Mana is mind. There's different manifestations of the self, even in this world. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And Prabhupada said that the intelligence is, he used this expression, I don't know if you can see my camera, he used this expression, it's this close to the super soul. He put two fingers together. It's this close to the super soul. And the intelligence comes from the super soul. And the intelligence comes according to your desire. As Krishna says in the 15th chapter, text 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, Matak Smritir Jnanam Aponam Cha. That Krishna gives intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness according to your desire. If you desire to forget Krishna, Krishna will give you intelligence how to forget him. If you desire to remember Krishna, Krishna will give you intelligence how to remember him. If Krishna desires to remember him, then Krishna will give you that intelligence. If you desire to come up with a bogus philosophy, Krishna will give you intelligence how to come up with a bogus philosophy. If you desire to justify horrible activities, then Krishna will give you a opportunity or intelligence in how to justify horrible activities. Just like, for example, you have many people, so-called Christians, whose intelligence tells them that animals have no souls. I mean, it's stupidity. They have that, they've come to that conclusion. It's not intelligent, it's stupid intelligence, because that's their desire. And one desires to eat animals, you have to justify that. And Krishna gives them that particular misunderstanding. Desire comes from the soul. Yep. Of course, the ultimate desire is desire to serve Krishna or desire to serve Maya. And then the intelligence in this world, the intelligence can actually be influenced by passion or ignorance or goodness. But ultimately, we're responsible because we desired Krishna Badhiramukha. We desire to turn our face away from Krishna, and therefore, we're responsible for the association with the modes of nature. Karanam guna sangasha sad janman jonishu. That we have a particular type of desire due to guna sangha, association with different modes of nature. And you will actually see the mind's desires change according to who you associate with. You know, if I were to go and associate with, let's say I would go, let's think of something stupid. If I was to go to a boxing match and watch the boxers, then the mind changes and the intelligence changes. I mean, just like, let me give you an example how I experienced that one time. I never went to a boxing match. I was in New Zealand one time, and I was in the airport, and I was watching the New Zealand team, whatever it is, you know, soccer, rugby. I don't even know the difference between them. Anyway, I was watching on the screen. I went into the lounge and was watching, and all of a sudden you get into the same mood as the people who are playing it, or the people who are watching it, and say, "Go!" And their team is called the All Blacks. Everyone was going, "Go, All Blacks!" So I could see it affecting my consciousness by that association. So I immediately ran out of the room and started going, "Krishna, Krishna, Krishna, save me from the All Blacks." Anyway, so you see, it's not a racial thing. That's just the name of their team. Not a racial epithet. It's just the name of their team. So by association with people, with certain types of food, with certain circumstances, with certain types of music, with certain times of the day, your consciousness changes. It's like wet paint. When you get wet paint on you, your consciousness changes, and your desires change, and your intelligence changes. So that's why Lord Chaitanya said, Satsanga Chage Vaishnavachar. The Vaishnava behavior is to avoid bad association. Okay. Right. I think we have to.
Dandavat Pranam Madhav Das.
Hi, Krishna Madhava.
So, yeah, I was listening about, this last question. So that's what I understood is the desire is the product of mind. Of course, if it is not, it is governed by intellect, but it is a product of desire, not of soul.
No, it's not of the soul, but the intelligence can actually, there's intelligence in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness, too. Intelligence can also be influenced by the modes of nature.
Yes.
Intelligence can be influenced by the modes of nature, and sometimes you can have the intelligence influenced by one mode and the mind influenced by another mode. Just like, for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say your intelligence tells you want to make a lot of money, and your mind is saying, I just want to sleep. So you can actually have a disparity or a conflict between the mind and intelligence, and the intelligence has to become so strong spiritually that you can ignore or control the mind.
But intelligence is superior than mind, isn't it?
Yes, intelligence is superior. It comes from the super soul, but also it manifests according to your association with the modes of nature.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's time to end right now. Thank you all very much. We'll see everybody tomorrow, same time.